r/AskReddit by Redmond Dts. What's the trashiest wedding you've been to? Really old friend of my wife's. She hadn't seen her in years but was invited to her wedding. The guy this chick was marrying was absolute. I studied the blade levels of cringe. He was shirtless, wore black jeans and his arms were covered in barbed wire tattoos and quotes that you'd find on those idiotic badass skeleton memes where they point guns at you and claim they'll mess you up if you hurt anyone I care about kind of stuff. It was quickly apparent my wife and I were the only ones in attendance that didn't live in a trailer park and practiced normal human hygiene. They were roasting what I thought was a suckling pig on a spit, but as it cooked, I noticed crap bubbling out of its ass and its stomach was swelling. I asked his best man if this was a properly slaughtered pig, and the best man proceeds to regale me with the tale of how he and the groom got wasted the night before, climbed into a nearby farm, and stole this pig. They shot it in the head and impaled it with a long piece of rebar, which upon closer inspection was what it was turning on. Just so happens while we were discussing the groom's recent crime, the pig's stomach exploded. Blood, poo and guts poured out in enough quantities to put out the fire. Wife and I had already given each other the time for us to get the F out of Dodge look before this, but needless to say we beelined for the car and left. We later found out the cops showed up and arrested the groom and his best man once the farmer they stole from realized one of his prized pigs was missing. The groom tried to fight the cops and got tased. He made it easy for them by already being shirtless. Yep. At a park. Pickup trucks with igloo coolers opened on the tailgate were the bar. Everything was served in red Solo cups before the wedding. Everyone got drunk. The bride walked down the aisle drinking from a red Solo cup instead of holding a bouquet. It was essentially a tailgate party with a preacher invited. I'm a wedding videographer, so I've seen some things, and while not necessarily trashy, one moment from a 2018 wedding stands out. Bride's dad gets up for his speech, where a 30-minute long speech plays out recounting embarrassing memories of the bride being generally non-athletic, taking soccer balls to the face, etc. Truly cringe-inducing, and the bride was very uncomfortable. He then tells the audience a story of how he used to travel for work, and at the time the bride was obsessed with Disney, Pirates of the Caribbean, and would often make up her own Disney characters, one being a French-speaking bird. She would make personalized cards with poorly drawn Jack Sparrow and French bird characters and send them to various locations when he was away traveling for work. Cute story, but entirely inappropriate, and far too long for a wedding speech. Finally, he raises his glass for the conclusion of his speech. Thank God. And then suddenly, two D-list local actors from the local theater troupe come out from the back door of the venue. Dressed as, you guessed it, Jack Sparrow and a woman in a French hat with wings, our French bird character from earlier. They had come to the wedding to deliver a card, but what plays out is a terribly acted story of how Jack Sparrow had gotten drunk on his journey to the venue, their ship had run aground, and he ditched the French bird lady, who's yelling in French. No one understands what she's saying. The bride is mortified. The groom is mouthing to the bride's mom to get dad off the stage. This back and forth between Jack Sparrow and the French bird goes on for about 10 minutes, with dad as the jovial in-between mediator, thinking he's crushing this speech the whole time. Finally, Jack Sparrow unfurls the card for the bride and groom, which is a giant poster with a picture of the bride and groom saying something along the lines of best wishes. Everyone was stunned, and both the bride and groom were so upset. The father-daughter dance after was very uncomfortable afterwards, and I got video of the entire thing. The bride and her sisters did a striptease lap dance on the groom immediately following dinner, in front of his grandmother. Groom beat the snot out of father-in-law. Father-in-law went to bathroom and died. Groom shot himself in parking lot. This was 25 years ago in Chicago. Crazy wedding. My own. In a Mississippi judge's office with a bag of Cheetos on her desk. She wiped her hands on a napkin, grabbed a Bible, and did her thing with orange crumbs on her lips. Her work heels were not on because she was in her office. It was extremely rush. I understand that she was on her break, but we didn't mind waiting. I don't know why they rushed us through. I'm so glad I can share this story again. In my early 20s, a childhood friend's sister was getting married. I was friendly with the family and all the siblings, so I agreed to go. When I got the invitation, it said on the invitation, "No gifts please, just money." This didn't seem like the bride. She would be fine with either. I then get contacted by bride's mother, who tells me to get them a physical gift because the groom's mother is planning on taking any money they get as compensation for planning the wedding. I get to the venue, which is a church, but the wedding is not actually in the main part of the church. It is in the church basement. So bizarre. It looks like the setup of a high school dance. My friend whose sister is getting married tells me that her sister never got her dress altered, so they had to use safety pins. They walk down the aisle to a Metallica song playing on a boombox. The ceremony was quick, thankfully. No alcohol at the wedding. Okay, it is what it is. There was sparkling 99-cent grape juice at each table. I know it was 99 cents because the stickers were left on the bottles. Bride's mother comes over to me and said I wouldn't eat the food. It was actually food that was supposed to be for Meals on Wheels, and some of it was frozen leftovers of food that wasn't used. This was the groom's mother's idea since she was paying for the wedding. I gave the bride and groom my gift. They said thank you and seemed perfectly happy with getting a physical gift. Groom's mother comes over to me and asks me why I didn't get them cash or a check for a gift. That it said that right on the invitation. I played dumb and said I must have missed that. She was pissed. Lastly, there was a guy there who took a liking to me. He was dressed in a white tank top, backwards hat and sweatpants. You know, some proper wedding attire. He told me he just got out of jail for drugs and that the Bloods and the Crips wanted him in their gangs. I told him that's interesting because he's white and I thought they didn't usually recruit white guys. He said they just really wanted him and that he hung out with black people all the time. He then told me that you could cure AIDS by injecting dish soap. It cleans out the blood. He asked for my phone number. I declined. Shockingly, the marriage only lasted a few years. Groom has full custody of their 2 kids because bride is not capable of taking care of their children. She had social services called on her multiple times. Probably my dad's second marriage. Along the banks of a river with trailer homes in the background. He's wearing a tuxedo t-shirt and rainbow mirror sunglasses. The ceremony took place at noon. He'd been drinking since 5 AM. I had to walk one of the bridesmaids down a flight of steps as she was legally blind, and someone asked me if I was going to bang her. Camo print wedding dress that was borderline see-through. Walked down the aisle to the Scooby-Doo theme. No, nobody knows why they chose that song, including the couple themselves. They divorced a few months later after they both stopped cleaning the house in an act of defiance against one another. A wedding on the beach behind Hooters. The officiant stood next to a trash bin. As if it was planned, the trash collector pulled up during the vows. Did he wait to change the bag? Absolutely not. Children at the wedding swarmed the couple like the flies around the trash can just after the kiss, stepping all over her dress. She bent over to adjust her sandal and a pack of Marlboro Reds fell out of the bust along with her right breast. It felt like we were rubbernecking instead witnessing a marriage. Edit. I'd ask how y'all knew this was the panhandle of Florida, Pensacola, but when I read this post to my fiance, he added, "Hummingbird, you forgot to add the background of boats sporting Trump flags and rental jet skis." I don't even know where to begin. Ceremony was comprised of immediate family, then followed by a reception with all guests in a relatively nice hotel banquet hall. An hour in at 7 PM the open bar was completely closed down because multiple guests were throwing up in the bathroom sinks causing flooding. The groom was so wasted even before the ceremony but was blackout by the time of reception. During the first dance he kept his hands in his cargo pant khakis the entire time and ate dinner sitting on the floor in a corner of the hall while the bride sat at the head table alone. About 2 hours in, the groom randomly left and slept at their house while the bride stayed in the newlywed suite by herself. They are now separated, as you may have assumed by this point. I was actually the bartender, but it was a hoot. First, wedding was outside and it stormed violently. Groom was hammered pre-wedding. Hit on all the bartenders. Then the DJ got hammered, made lewd comments to women in the microphone. Then basically everyone was hammered, knocked over the wedding cake, which also happened to be a table with many candles, so the place caught on fire. Good times. Often wonder how that marriage worked out. The bride made a speech thanking her in-laws for financial assistance for the event. Her mother was not thanked and she was furious. There was a long head table for bridal party and parents. It was made out of small tables pushed together covered by one long tablecloth. The mother pulled a small table out of the arrangement, catching the tablecloth, and nearly destroying the head table setup. Now the bride got angry and there was much back and forth with various family members attempting to make peace. The mother refused to push back her table and began to invite others to sit with her, all people who were not meant to be seated at the front. Mother of bride continued to sit there and talk crap about her daughter, the bride, to anyone who would listen. My friends told me my dog could be my +1 at their wedding. At first I said, what? No. But they insisted because Buddy is a great dog and I am a sad single person. So I put a tie on the dog and we went to a wedding. Wedding was in a suburban driveway. The maid of honor stole the bouquet from someone's garden and the best man proudly announced he had shoplifted the rings. The groom wore a button-down shirt that said F off in fancy lettering. The bride stopped in the middle of the vows to tell her mother to get that effing kid out of here. It was her second kid by the previous bloke. When it was over, we apologized to the celebrant. He said he'd seen worse. There were no tables and chairs. Like none. They had an open bar but no f***ing chairs. Everyone had to put their drink on the ground and hold their plates to eat. It was f***ing crazy. Everyone just assumed that some sort of terrible thing happened where the tables and chair people didn't bring them, but afterwards I asked her, the bride, what happened, and she just said, oh, we would have had to pay extra for that. Did they get married in The Sims? I had one of my friends from high school get married in a trashy way. His fiancée at the time invited him to lunch at Buffalo Wild Wings and she had also invited the whole family. They were in on it. And once my friend showed up he found out it was a surprise's wedding. Just like you would do a surprise birthday party. The even trashier part is they didn't reserve the restaurant or anything. So in his wedding photos, standing in front of the bathrooms, by the way, you can see complete strangers coming out of the bathrooms. I went to a wedding in a funeral home once. Drove by it 3 times before realizing that it was in fact the correct address for the venue. Reception and ceremony were there. Completely dry wedding too. I've been to a funeral home wedding, too. The bride worked there, so got it for super cheap. It was nowhere near a dry venue, though. Lots of booths. A friend of the family is a wedding photographer. We went to dinner with her family a few weeks ago and she explained the most bizarre wedding she had ever been to, which happened to be that same day, and involved someone we all know. Wedding was behind a trailer in a trailer park. Folding chairs clearly labeled property of school. There were 2 church pews, and several 5-gallon buckets turned upside down. Some of the wedding party arrived on riding mowers. The bride was wearing some screen printed t-shirt, jeans, and a veil made from cheesecloth. The groom was wearing a jean vest with no shirt underneath and torn jeans. The bride had met the groom just over 3 months prior, as the groom was still married to his first wife at the time. Divorce takes 90 days here. Do the math. Most of the guests were dressed like they were in the middle of doing yard work. Reception was in the same area. Several cases of PBR and Miller Lite, supermarket pre-boxed cheese and cracker spreads, and a few Bojangles fried chicken boxes. Bride jumped onto a table and did a full striptease. I got married at a drive-thru in Las Vegas. The only photo I still had my seatbelt on. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. Have a nice evening.